Okay, so when it comes to number 34, we're looking at something that's wanting us to solve a system of equations. So what we're having to do is to focus on canceling out a certain variable. Okay, we're focusing on canceling out the x variable. You may be asking, well, how do we cancel out the x variable when we have three equations? Like, how do we even cancel out a variable? What does that mean? Well, think about what it means to cancel something when you're talking about equations. Okay, for example, our first step, we're going to, we would say, manipulate the second equation to where we can cancel this 2x. Stay with me and you'll find out what I mean when I say that we're going to cause it to cancel or eliminate. Okay, we are going to look for the common factors in the coefficients for the x variable. What do you mean? All that is just fancy words saying, hey, I'm looking at our variable x and I need to know a coefficient, a common factor between the coefficients of the variable x that will cancel out. How do you cancel out? Well, you make it the same number that it is, but it's reciprocal. So if we have a 2x here, what cancels out a 2x? Well, it would be a negative 2x. Example, what would cancel out a 3x? A negative 3x, you know? So when I say that we're manipulating this equation right here, we are manipulating this equation here by multiplying it by what we need in order to cancel out these variables respectively. So for this first one, we're going to take this equation, x plus 2y, so on, minus 8, equals negative 8. We're going to take this equation and we're going to multiply it by negative 2, okay? And this is going to end up being our answer. Our second step is we're going to add what we received as that to our first equation. What do you mean? Just manipulate this one and then add it to your first equation to cancel it out. So we're going to end up having 2x plus 4y minus z equals 14 plus negative 2x minus 4y plus 6z equals 16. Okay, now you might be asking, well, where did you get this negative 2x minus 4y from? Well, that's what happens when we take that middle equation. We like to use this equation because it doesn't have a coefficient in front of it, so it makes it easier. Of course, we could have manipulated these, but you know, it just makes it easier because it's like multiplying by 1. You don't have to worry about, you know, making minor multiplication mistakes compared to if it was a 7 or an 8 or a 12. So we're going to say, hey, let's take this equation, multiply by negative 2, y negative 2, because I need the opposite reciprocal number for this coefficient, which is 2. So what's the opposite? Negative 2. Awesome, we're going to add those. Why? Because they cancel out. It just so happens that this y variable also cancels out, and it's going to leave us with this negative z plus positive 6z, which is going to give us 5z, okay? Because it's like saying negative 1 plus 6 is going to give you 5. Then we add, we get 30, okay? Once we do our simple division here, we end up getting that z equals 6. Now stay with me. This is what we're going to end up doing for most of these equations, okay? We're going to be finding out what the variable is. We're looking for x, y, and z. So this is z. Now we're going to take our middle equation, and we're going to do the same thing again, except we're going to focus on this 3x here, okay? So find out what your opposite number is going to be for this coefficient. They gave us a 3, so our opposite would be a negative 3. So let's multiply this equation by negative 3 so that it makes it opposite, so that it cancels when we add, okay? How do we do that? Just simply multiply. We're going to take this negative 3 and multiply it by this equation. We get negative 3 times x times 2y times, and so on and so forth, okay? Same thing over here. We took that negative 2, we said negative 2 times x, negative 2 times 2y, that's how we get negative 4, negative 2 times negative 3z, that's how we got positive 6z, and so on and so forth, okay, with this negative 8 turning into 16. So we're over here, and we just multiplied by negative 3. Now we're going to add it to our to our 3x equation so that it cancels out, and it ends up telling us that y equals 5, okay? If you need to pause it so that you can look at this work, this is the work of the equation, okay? And we end up getting y equals 5. Well, now we know what y is and what z is. So what we're going to do is we're going to take y and z, which is 5 and 6, and we're going to substitute it into our middle equation. All right, so we're going to say x, because we don't know what x is yet, plus 2, instead of putting y, we're going to put 5, minus 3, and instead of putting z, we're going to put 6, equals negative 8. Okay, so then we solve, okay, we see how we get 10, negative 18, add this down until we end up seeing that x actually comes out to equal 0, okay, because we have 10 minus 18, which gives us negative 8. In order to get x by itself, we have to do the opposite, which would be positive 8, or adding 8 to both sides. Negative 8 plus 8 cancels out and gives us 0, okay? So our answer ends up being x, y, z. Okay, well that equals 0, 5, and 6, okay?